we
are live.
I already pressed the button. You have to try and speak like a sound like a Nazi who's desperately trying to speak English.
Okay, I try my best.
Yeah, I have to apologize because now you have two Germans, like I said, two Germans who will end up sounding like Nazis.
Even though we are not, we aren't.
Desperately trying to communicate in English. Yes, well, that's also a stereotype, isn't it? Like, whenever you mention the word Nazi, all Germans go like, "We are not Nazis! Why are you calling us Nazis? This is insult!" They go like that, and then they sound like Nazis. Yeah.
Yeah, we are fairly normal people. So for those who watch us,
I know this isn't funny. I mean, at least for Germans, the Germans then go on. This isn't funny. You don't make jokes about this. This isn't funny. No. I apologize, but that's kind of the stereotype people have that Germans will react like that, and that's why people tend to think that Germans have no sense of humor.
Yeah.
So every time you have, every time there's a German, and you have an English speaking audience, you first have to get rid of that Nazi prejudice, so to say. So the way I do it, I just had, well, I just, I want to get that out of the way, because I know people will make Nazi jokes when you have two Germans talking to each other in English, because it sounds funny. So people will make jokes like that. So I already did that. So anyway, I'm actually really glad that you're here, and we already talked. We already talked on my German channel, and we already talked on your channel, and we talked in German. But I think it's such an important topic, and you basically dedicated your life to helping people overcome their traumatic experiences, and I think that's such a noble cause that I also wanted to introduce you to my English speaking audience, so to say.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Just you can introduce yourself the best, I think. So just
I'll just go ahead. Yeah,
just go ahead and say a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, great. You stop me when I don't stop talking.
No, that's what I do. You have to stop me. I'm the one who's always talking too much.
Okay, well, we see. My name is Ursula Schulenburg, and I'm a speaker, I'm an author and a life coach. And as you already said so beautifully, Manuel, I really dedicated my life to helping people, overcome their traumatic experiences, whether this has been violent experiences or with sexual abuse, emotional abuse. And I've written several books. They're currently only in German, but they're in the process of translating into English. So stay tuned. They will be out soon. And the books are about sexual abuse. I suffered sexual abuse myself in my childhood and youth. And that is why I decided to dedicate my life to the subject. Not to talk about the suffering, not to talk about how hard and horrible everything is, but rather to talk about that there are ways to overcome this trauma, that there are ways to get back your life, to even have a beautiful life, to feel at home in your body, to feel like a woman or like a man, to have a normal life, and to live your life on purpose, including this dark subject. And I would even like to go a step further, that I see it as my part of my task in life, my purpose to bring light to the subject, to talk about it, to create more consciousness, and to help more people. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm a co-founder of a non-profit organization in Germany. It's called El Faro. That's Spanish, so don't get confused with all the languages. That means lighthouse. And again, the idea of bringing light into the darkness. And yeah, that's an organization that helps people who suffered from traumatic experiences and sexual abuse. We have self-help groups, like Manuel mentioned already in our talk before this, and we offer courses and do public work and yeah, these kind of things to spread the word and the message that it's possible to cope with sexual abuse.
Yeah, we had quite a discussion about whether or not to call it a self-help group, but you said it's not actually a self-help group.
Well, what I would say, it's an organization, and it includes a self-help group for women and for men. But it also has self-defense training and building up aggression training, so that people kind of get back their positive aggression, their positive sense of self-worth. We give talks, we offer courses. So it's a whole bunch of things we offer. And one of them, yes, it's a self-help group. So
basically it is a self-help group, but it's also more than that. It's not just a self-help group. So
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Now you mentioned that building aggression training. Maybe you have to explain that a little. I mean, we already talked about it in German, but maybe you have to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to. Whenever I mention the word building up your aggressions, people freak out and say, "Oh, you are turning people into Rambos and you're making people aggressive." No, it's far away from the truth. What happens if when people, and no matter if it's women or men, when they suffer from sexual abuse, from violence, what happens is that a lot of aggression comes towards them, and they tend to go into depression. So they tend to be under such shock and trauma that they're not able to react. So for example, a woman who has experienced violation or abuse and violence, for a woman, it's very hard to say stop, to raise the voice. And I'm not saying to be aggressive, but to be able to set boundaries. The boundaries have been taken so far away from them that they really have to learn to say stop, and also to defend themselves physically. So what we mean by building up aggression is not that it's we build up on top of a normal aggression, but what we do is to go from minus to zero. Because when you suffer sexual abuse, and I think that's a good example, you go from the state of zero, which is normal, into minus. And what we do is we help people to get back into a normal state of self-worth, of the consciousness that we are, that's our birthright, our right to defend ourselves.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, I didn't really mention this as much on my English channel, but I did mention it, and I already did a video about it, but I haven't uploaded it, and that is about my sexual abuse in my childhood. I've mentioned it a little, but I'm gonna talk about it more. And that was something that was really difficult for me. After having experienced those traumatic events, it was really difficult for me to then still be able, to set boundaries, because that was something that I couldn't do when I was abused. I was not allowed to have boundaries, and everything. Basically all the boundaries I had, and all the self-worth I had, kind of gets violated when you get abused. So it was really difficult for me to then later on learn to set boundaries again, and to and not to go to extremes, to just be able to live a normal life, and just say no. Not saying no in like a frantic manner, but just in a polite but determined manner, so that people will respect it. That was really difficult for me, and I think that's difficult for everybody who has experienced sexual abuse. To just learn to say no again, and say it in a manner that people will respect.
Yeah, and it's great that you're sharing this. To say no in a normal way, and also what I've encountered in my work with so many people who suffered from abuse and violence is that they fear to say no, because when they said no when they were victims, like as children or whenever the event happened, when they said no, that's the moment where the storm, so to say, started. So for them, it's already a big thing to learn to say no, and to see that in this moment, in present, they are saying no actually has weight. They can, yeah, maybe for the first time in their life, they can stand up for themselves and be successful.
You get brainwashed into not saying no.
Absolutely, you do, and you experience it, especially when you experience sexual abuse in your family or repeatedly. It's like, yeah, it's like a brainwash. You experience it over and over again, that whatever you do, how loud you shout and scream, that nobody hears you, and that you always lose, and that affects your brain, that affects your whole mentality.
Yeah,
So
but you get educated that well, kind of that's kind of part of the brainwashing, it's like educated with an asterisk. You get educated that really, when you get beaten up, it's it's really not the fault of the perpetrator. It's really your fault, because your thinking, your mind was wrong. Your mind was unclean, so to say. It was not properly washed yet, So your thinking was wrong. That's why you have to suffer, because your own thinking was wrong, and so it's your fault. And you just have to learn to not say no, and to agree with whatever the perpetrator wants, and then everything will be fine. That's kind of the way you get brainwashed.
yeah, that's true. I actually experienced it, yeah, very much like you described it in my own family. That after a certain time, I questioned myself, like, am I right in what I'm doing, or am I doing something wrong? And that's why all of this is happening to me. And it's a phenomenon that happens to so many people who suffer from abuse and violence. So yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, there's still, every time I thought, hey, I finally overcome this thing, I noticed that there is still layers, and there's still things that I haven't overcome. So just yesterday, I work as a meter maid. You know what a meter maid is?
The big a big market for
No,
no, then I don't know. Let me
no.
know.
I'll say it to you in German. Politesse.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I work as a meter maid. Of course, that's not the official designation. Okay, but anyway, what I do is I give out parking tickets. Parking fines. So you can imagine that people love me. And that was actually really helpful, because it really helped me, to remain calm, even when other people are not calm. Even when other people yell at you and call you names, to still remain calm. That was yeah, because it really helped me learn that. But sometimes, like, especially just yesterday, uh there was one person who really who gotten so aggressive and you know and was calling me names and whatnot, and I didn't get angry, but I didn't remain calm either. I felt like, you know, a cornered rat, so to say, you know. I felt like I was being pushed into in a corner, and I wasn't really able to remain calm, and and afterwards I thought, you know, why was it like that? Why did I feel like I was being cornered all of a sudden, you know? And and why wasn't I able to remain calm? Because most of the time, you know, I'm kind of already used and such, so it doesn't really bother me. But then I noticed it's still, you know, that incident, it still bothered me. So I really thought about a lot about why it bothered me, and why I felt so cornered. And I noticed that there is still that I still kind of have the feeling, and that comes from my childhood, that comes from the abuse, that you know, a lot of people who feel that way, you know, who feel that they're being cornered, and many people then get aggressive at that point, and that happens because they don't have enough self-worth, you know. They and I see that a lot with the people who attack me, or you know, who call me names. You know, they get really aggressive, and I realized that the reason for this is that they don't really love themselves. So they have the same feeling. They feel cornered, and when someone feels cornered, he gets aggressive, and yeah, and I noticed that that was also the case with me. I mean, I didn't get aggressive, but um, I felt uh, I felt bad about myself. You know, I didn't feel good enough. Like you said, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. You know, and that incident yesterday made me realize that I still felt that way. That I still feel like somewhere there would be something wrong with me, that I wouldn't be good enough or whatever. You know, and that it was that feeling that prevented me from staying calm in that moment. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I found interesting is that's a little bit off topic, but you mentioned that people who attack you, or people who attack, they usually don't have a high self-esteem and don't feel much self-love. And that's so true for those who commit crimes like sexual abuse and being violent. Um, at the root of their actions actually is a lack of self-love. Very often they don't feel themselves anymore. They lost the connection to themselves, and this loss in connection leads to the wrong thinking by destroying somebody else, getting back self-love or the love and respect for themselves. It's a whole paradox, but it's something you encounter very often when talking to victims, but also when talking to well, to the abuser, so to speak. That there's somewhere this thinking, when I destroy the child and see the destruction in front of me, that heals my own inner wound, that heals my destroyed inner child. And obviously it's a totally wrong thinking, obviously something horrible. And it's something like I pass on the negative energy I received myself, all the wrong I received, I give it to somebody else in the wrong belief that that is what is freeing me. And obviously there are other ways to get rid of this. I mean, you know, you and myself, we have taken this way. We have done therapy and we are helping other people. And obviously there are positive ways. But one of the negative ways is to get back to oneself after such an experience is, yeah, to pass it on in the attempt to get back to yourself. So yeah, it's
That's actually why it's so important to me to be able to talk about this. It's really important for me because yeah, well, of course there is always, you know, in my case, my mother, who was the one who sexually abused me in my childhood, she's still alive. So we already had the discussion when we spoke in German on my German channel. You know, I kind of explained to you why I have to talk about it anyway. You know, even though of course my mother wouldn't exactly appreciate that, you know. But it's not really about her. I mean, I'm not, people, especially when, you know, especially with my English channel, people won't know who she is. And so it's not at all about you know, bad mouthing her or anything like that. I don't care about that. But it's important for me to talk about this because it's also a process for me to overcome all that has happened. And and I think that's very important. And I think everybody who has experienced traumatic events um, should really do that. I mean, you mustn't. What do you call this in English? You have to really face what happened and not you know and not suppress it.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what my mother did. She also yeah, well, she also experienced traumatic events, and she was probably, yeah, well, I'm still not 100% sure, but very likely that it's very likely that she herself was actually raped when she was a girl, and but she never coped with that. She never tried to cope with that. She always suppressed that, and she never talked about it publicly or privately or to anybody. You know, she and so what happens, because she wasn't allowed to, I mean, you know, because of her family, they didn't allow her to talk about it, they didn't allow her to see a psychologist. So when you're not allowed to talk about it, what happens is that you're not allowed to blame the perpetrator. I mean, you should, I mean, you're not going to go like, you know, oh yeah, this is the most evil person in the world. No, I mean, I'm sure my mother is fine in other aspects. I mean, I'm sure she does other things than molesting little boys, you know. So I'm not saying that she's a bad person, you know, but that thing that she did to me, that was wrong. And I should be able and I should be allowed to talk about that. And it's important for me to talk about that. You know, you should be able to openly address that, because that's very important. Because when you don't do it, and when you're not allowed to openly address that, then what happens is that you repress all that. But when you repress it, it's still kind of there, and then anger builds up, and then all the things happen that you addressed. You know,
Yeah,
then the
yeah, you.
perpetrator, then the victim, with the passage of time, the victim can turn into a perpetrator.
Yeah, it's so true. Or another thing that yeah, I often encounter in my work is that people who suffered from aggression and don't find a way to get it out, to cope with it, to give it a voice, this energy stays inside their bodies or inside their whole being, and they become ill. That's what it's called, psychosomatic. That traumatic experiences who you can't cope with in your head or in your heart, they manifest on a physical level, um, through skin problems, psoriasis, for example, in your intestines, or so many illnesses. They don't have an organic. Well, they're not organically. That didn't come from bacteria or virus, but they really come from this negativity inside, we can't cope with. And I give you an example that is very easy to understand. When you go to an exam, you're nervous. And very often, even though we are very well prepared, we are not able to cope with it just on a mental level. So what happens? We start to sweat. We need to go to the bathroom. And that's psychosomatic. So like a psychological or a mental event, and it doesn't always need to be something very bad, affects our body. And so talking about how to cope with sexual abuse and talking about giving voice to what happened to us, that's so important, because everything we give out, and no matter whether it's in writing or in talking, or even writing in your journal, or talking to a therapist, or talking to a friend, or talking publicly like we are doing now, it's always a way of giving out this energy in a positive way, though, because giving it out and hurting somebody else is also giving it out, but creating something new that is negative. But by voicing it, by helping other people with our stories, by sharing what we have experienced, that's a way of getting rid of the negative energy, but creating something new and something positive. And I don't know how it has been for you, Manuel, but for me, it really has been a process, because when I was young, I wasn't able to talk about what happened to me. So I actually started talking about it when I was 19, 20, and didn't do it publicly. I did it. I talked to a therapist, to my diary, so to speak, in self-help groups, and then over the years, my courage built up, and I started to write books. And then years later, I had found the courage to publish them. And now showing my face in the camera and naming what really happened to me. But it took years. And I would even go further. It took decades, because I'm 40 years old right now, and I'm working on the subject for 20 years now. So it's something that has been building up over the years. Yeah, has been quite a journey.
So, I still want to know a little more background about you. I mean, or
Sure.
probably, the people watching this would want to know. So, what exactly is it that you do, like when you give speeches? Because you mentioned before that you're an author, you're a speaker, and you're a life coach. So, what is that you do?
Well, what I do is, as a speaker, I give workshops and give speeches around the subject of sexual abuse and violence, and not just talking about the drama, but always finding ways how to cope with it, how to say yes to life again, how to reconnect with your body, how to feel comfortable in your body, how to get back your positive aggression. So always addressing subjects like what you've lost or where you've suffered, and how you're able to overcome it and create something new, get back your life, and create something positive. That really is, I would say, my life's message. Say yes to life again, no matter what happened to you, and obviously also sharing my own personal story to inspire others, other women, other people in general, and to spread the message that it's possible to get back on your feet, no matter what you've experienced, even if it's sexual abuse in your own family, which I consider one of the worst. And that's also the subjects I address in my books. I usually share some of my own story, and then talk about how step by step I was able to get back my own life.
You just said you usually share some of what happened to you. So we didn't actually in this video we didn't actually mention that yet. So if it's okay with you, if you I mean, I'm okay with talking about it. So could you about what happened to you?
Yeah, without going like too much into details, but I experienced sexual abuse and violence in my own family from with my father, and yeah, you can probably imagine how deeply that impacted me, because your family, I mean, for a child, that's the world. My family was my world when I was a little girl, and it really shook to a core my trust in life, my trust in men, and I grew up with with the belief that life is dangerous and that I'm not safe. And it took me, I wouldn't say years, but decades to restore this trust in life, um, to restore this trust in men, to build up normal relationships, to feel comfortable with other people, not having to constantly protect myself, be in aggression mode.
Yeah, it's like what I said earlier. You feel like you constantly feel like the rat that's being cornered.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, the experience or the feeling, you can never know, because if it's the bad guy outside that has hurt you, so that's quite easy. It's the bad guy outside. But if the abuse happens in your own family, especially if it's your mother or your father, you kind of get schizophrenic, because on one hand you love them, you need them, you depend on them, and on the other hand, they're the worst person in the world. So how do you know whether when you see them, you're looking in the eyes of your mommy or the devil? You know what I mean? Or when daddy comes to kiss you goodnight, does he just kiss you goodnight and goes away, or does he stay and other things happen? So you live in this constant fear and this constant not knowing what the heck is going to happen right now.
It destroys your trust in people. Basically, you're not able to trust anybody anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And you're always in kind of on guard. Somebody is nice to you, and then you say, okay, is he or she just being nice, or is something else going to happen? Do I have to defend myself, or can I receive this gift of this person? So yeah, it's also a big subject for most of people, most of the people who suffered abuse and violence. Yeah.
It's a very difficult subject. It's very difficult for for the people who experience that, and I do kind of know how that feels, because it took a long while for me to be able to trust other people again. uh and even even with my wife, I mean, of course I trust my wife, but sometimes there are especially when you're being intimate, there were little things, that remind me of the abuse in my childhood, and then I start feeling anxious, and I get uncomfortable, and in the beginning that was really difficult, especially for my wife, because she didn't know why I was reacting that way.
Did she know that?
Actually, well, originally, the thing is, originally, I didn't know why I was reacting that way either. So it really took a lot of time, and took a lot of talks with psychologists for me to actually realize what was going on. And when I knew what was going on, then I was able to explain it to my wife, and and that way we were able to overcome that. But in the beginning, it's really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. For me it was a little bit different, because of what I've experienced. I just stayed away from men, and only opened up again also for to intimacy and a relationship, at a moment in my life when yeah, when I felt I'm able to deal with it. So yeah, and I'm glad I'm where I am today, because it has been a journey. This journey of opening up, of trusting again, of letting yourself be touched, be loved. And I remember the first times, always the memories came up, and also the belief, or the rather this being astonished. Can it really be positive? Is it really possible that somebody is nice with you? He really means it? I don't know if you know this feeling, but this kind of unbelief, disbelief, that it can really be nice.
Yeah, well, that's like what we said before, kind of mistrust that builds up.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to be able to trust people again after something like that. Um, yeah.
yeah. And I think it's also important to give yourself time in the process. For me, it took years and years, and I think it's important not to pressure yourself, to really appreciate every little step you take, even though we're talking about baby steps. To be gentle with yourself, and to be the first person who treats you like you want others to treat you. So
Yeah, that's kind of, that's kind of in the Bible, how did that go again? The do unto others or something. How did that go again? I'm
oh,
so
yeah, I
bad.
think do unto others like you like you wish that it's be
Yeah,
done to you, something like that. Yeah.
yeah. The problem with that is that a lot of people, especially when they suffered abuse, um basically it goes like this: treat others like you well, like
Want to be treated yourself,
yeah,
maybe.
something like that.
Yeah,
So anyway, the problem with people who suffered abuse is that they hate themselves.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's
when they hate themselves, they kind of also hate others. Well, not always, but if you go into an extreme, then then that's what happens. So you really have to learn to love yourself again, and to really learn that there is nothing wrong with you, and that you don't feel guilty, because like we said, the perpetrator wants you to feel guilty. He wants you to think that this is all your fault, even though it's clearly the perpetrator's fault. So you have to be able uh, uh, to kind of set that relationship right again, and to really realize that there is nothing wrong with you, and that you shouldn't hate yourself, because when you hate yourself, then you're also capable of hating others. When you love yourself, then you're capable of loving others.
yeah,
And when you appreciate yourself, then you're capable of appreciating others. When you're incapable of appreciating yourself, you're also incapable of appreciating others.
yeah. And this whole journey back to loving oneself. Um, yeah, for me it was a big subject, because, for example, my body, I learned through the sexual abuse that my body is something to hate. That was kind of
Why?
my,
Why would you hate your body though?
yeah. And when we look at little children and babies, I mean, they all love themselves. They play with their feet and they're in love with themselves. But for me, what happened through the sexual abuse, because I was treated with such it wasn't unkindness, it was with hate and
Violence?
violence, total violence. My conclusion was, something must be so bad about my body, otherwise I wouldn't be experiencing this. So this stayed in my mind, and when I became a teenager, I had formed this belief, my body is something bad. And obviously I started working on myself, and I did a lot of therapy and read self-help books and self-help groups, and everything you do. um, And it actually started when I became a therapist myself and started helping others, that I learned, because I had to show others, that I learned to reconnect with my body, to accept my body, and to even love my body, to really feel comfortable in my own skin, and to see that my body is nothing to hate, and that it was only hated because the person who did this to me didn't have other possibilities to get rid of his negative emotions. Let's say this person would have hit against some kind of cushion, or against a boxing gear, no problem. But he chose to not to beat into a boxing, boxing gear, but to take a child. And what I did, and that's why I got into self-defense, is I had a lot of aggression inside myself, and I wanted to find a channel and a valve to get it out without hurting anyone, including myself. Because as you probably know, so many people take this aggression, this hate they feel within themselves, and direct it against themselves. So they start cutting their skin, they hate themselves, they hurt themselves. So what I think is key to cope with sexual abuse is to be able to express the emotions you have inside, but not only verbally, but also physically, in ways that don't harm yourself and don't harm others. And one of them can be self-defense, or just doing any kind of sport.
I wanna get into one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to mention it. I don't want to. We haven't actually mentioned yet. I mean, you don't have to say specifically where you are, but I think it's really interesting. So you're still in Ibiza, right?
Yes.
How do you pronounce that in English, though? Ibiza?
I think it's Ibiza. Ibiza, I think. Yeah, and I'm not on a party trip, as you might think. It's winter here. And I'm actually recording with my team an online program to a book I wrote. The book is called Into the Light. And as I mentioned, it's currently translated into English. And yeah, we created an online course for this. It's a transformational course, how to improve your life and live the best version of yourself.
So basically, you're making a film?
No, it's an online program. It's a teaching program. It contains 15 sessions with the different subjects, such as self-love is one of the subjects. How to transform your life, how to reconnect with yourself, how to find true inner peace, how to get into contact with also the soul of your perpetrator. Because the book was inspired when my father passed away, which happened a couple of months ago, so it's quite recent. And I had quite an experience around his transitioning.
Why would you want to connect with the soul of the perpetrator?
Good question. For me, it has been, I separated or went away from my family when I was 16 and saw them for the last time when I was 20. And since then, I worked on myself. I did a lot of therapy, as I mentioned, and I became a therapist myself and wrote books. So I was always looking for solutions, improving my own life, and getting to terms with what I've experienced. And I consider myself, a spiritual person. And there came a moment in my life where I wanted really deep peace, also with peace with my perpetrator. And the ironic thing is that exactly 1 year ago, I decided, 20 years after the last abuse I suffered with my father, I decided to take the subject to court. And I decided it was time to speak my truth, to give voice to what I've experienced, no matter how the authorities would react, because obviously it's a long time ago. And at the moment I said yes to myself, and I took the courage to take that step. I felt the need to connect with the soul of my father, of the person who did all this to me, because what I was looking for was not revenge. I didn't want to put him into prison. That wasn't what I was looking for. What I was looking for was my inner freedom and a sense of purpose and peace. And that's where the desires was born, with the need to connect with his soul, because I believe there's a deeper meaning in things that happen to us. It's not just karma, you did something bad, so now you have to suffer in this life. I always felt that there's something deeper, and that's where the need was born, to connect with the soul. Yeah, that's to answer your question. But it happened 20 years after, like, really hard work on myself. It wasn't right at the beginning. But I think it's, for me, it was the level, the spiritual level came after the psychological level. So once most of the pain was cured, kind of the wound wasn't bleeding anymore, but there was a scar. That's where I started thinking about connecting with the soul. Yes. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really know what to say to this, because let me ask you again. What exactly do you mean, though, by connecting to his soul? I mean, do you mean like in a spiritual manner, or in what do you mean?
Well, you already said it. I mean, connecting in a spiritual manner, because I believe that the soul, we all have a soul, and the soul is the essence within us, and the essence is purely positive. It's, call it love, or call it peace, or call it freedom. So, and I believe that we, on a soul level, we co-create the events in our life, and I even dare to say that we co-create that victim and perpetrator on a soul level. Please don't get me wrong. On a purely soul level, we co-create these events. And so I wanted to connect with the soul and to make peace on a soul level, because I believe that's where my inner peace, that's why I was lacking this inner peace that I found through this connection. That makes sense.
Yeah, I feel that it makes sense, even though it would be very hard for me to put it into words.
Yeah,
and that's the trouble with it. It's kind of difficult to explain, right?
Yeah, it's more. I think it's maybe it's a knowing.
I think I know. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think these kind of things, that's at least how it happened to me. It's not that it so much happens on a rational level, but really on a soul level. And I have often, when I talk about this with people, they say, okay, it kind of makes sense, but I don't really understand it, but I can feel that it's true. It's kind of a soul knowing. It's more an intuitive thing. And yeah, but this experience, or this this level, I would really want to say, is something that has come now for me after 20 years of struggle and hardship and self-help groups and everything we talked about. But I believe that it's possible. Whatever you experience, that you can find back to this inner peace, and on a soul level, come to terms with your perpetrator. I totally believe in that.
Like, is it like you're trying to say that you want to forgive his soul, so to say? Is that kind of it?
Yeah, it's an interesting. You would mention the word to forgive, because I always struggled with the word. I say, okay, if I forgive him, then I can. It felt like self-betrayal. What I experienced is that on a soul level, and maybe that's a whole subject for another call. That on a soul level, we co-created this event, and I would actually have to go deeper so it makes sense, because I had a couple of, I would call it, spiritual awakenings that led me to come to this conclusion. And I would say it feels like forgiveness, although I wouldn't call it forgiveness, if that makes sense. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a subject for a whole another call. I mean, I would love to share everything with you and your audience, because it's the subject that my whole new video course is about. It's something I'm totally into, but I guess I would need a little bit more time to go into depth. What do you say?
What do I say? Well, it's really interesting, and I think I kind of understand what you mean, and I think it is. I mean, even though you don't you don't like to mention that word, and I can understand why, but I feel like it is about forgiveness.
Yeah, it is about yeah.
And forgiveness is not I mean. Of course, that's something very personal, and you have to decide that for yourself, and it's of course totally fine if you don't forgive. That's fine. You don't have to feel like you have to forgive. I mean, if you don't want to forgive, you don't have to. Um,
and
but I feel that if you do decide to forgive, I mean, then that's not then that's not a weakness, or it doesn't mean that you are weak or anything like that. On quite the opposite. I feel it takes enormous strength to be able to really do that.
Yeah, and I know that this subject always gave me so much pressure in the past years, because everybody was kind of going on, yeah, you have to forgive, and if you want to find true inner peace, you have to forgive. And I was always sitting there like this, at least internally, saying, leave me alone. This is too big for me. I can't do it. And I felt so bad because I wasn't able to do it. So for anyone who is watching right now, don't feel bad. It's totally normal that there are times in your life where you think, I can do everything but forgive. And Manuel, I have a little problem here, because they close at 9:30, and they're giving me signs to pay my bill and to get out of here. So why don't we schedule another call to talk about forgiveness?
You're at the harbor, right? How do you?
Yes, I'm in the harbor, and there's he has very good internet connection, and they close at 9:30, so
Okay.
it's kind of
Okay.
just
Yeah.
about time. And I think I will have to leave in a couple of minutes, otherwise they will throw me out. I hope this is not too harsh, the break right now.
No, it's fine. I think we mentioned everything, right?
Yeah, we covered it quite
kind
some,
of an overview, at
material.
least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still I still envy you for being on that beautiful island. Yeah. And I was really, it was really nice to talk to you again. And yeah, you will give me links that are appropriate for an English speaking audience so that I can put them in the description.
Yes, the book is not out in English yet, but as soon as it is, I will pass you the link. And well, thank you so much for having me on your English channel, so your audience can get to know me, and hopefully next time maybe we have some viewers and some listeners. And I would love to continue this conversation in German or in English, no matter the language. And yeah, thanks so much for having me, Manuel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Talk
dann
to you next time.
machen wir mal Schluss. Ja, tschüss.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Danke.
Ciao.